Let's talk about tariffs. These taxes on imported goods might sound like dry policy, but they can reshape entire economies overnight. Tariffs are more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. They're levers of power, tools that can protect industries or spark global trade wars. And in 2025, one tariff in particular sent shockwaves through the global economy, catching investors, manufacturers, and governments completely off guard. On July 30th, 2025, former President Trump took the podium and announced a staggering 50% tariff on all imported semi-finished copper products. The news was delivered with characteristic bravado, but the implications were anything but routine. This wasn't a minor tweak to trade policy, it was a sledgehammer to the global supply chain. Overnight, companies around the world scrambled to assess the fallout, as supply contracts and production schedules were thrown into chaos. The rule, effective August 1st, was designed to protect American industry, echoing recent tariffs on steel and aluminum. The administration argued it would level the playing field for U.S. manufacturers and revive domestic production. But markets panicked. Copper futures soared 14% in just 6 minutes, the biggest single jump since 1968. Traders scrambled to adjust, and the shock rippled through financial centers from New York to Shanghai. The price of copper hit an all-time high, sending tremors through every industry that relies on this essential metal, which in today's world is nearly all of them. From electronics to construction, copper is the backbone of modern infrastructure. The tariff didn't target raw copper ore, but the semi-finished goods that are absolutely vital for plumbing, air conditioning, and the electrical grid. These are the components that keep homes cool, water flowing, and cities powered. The logic was simple. Force companies to buy American, boost local jobs, and reduce reliance on foreign suppliers. It was a bold move, wrapped in patriotic rhetoric. But there was a glaring flaw. America simply doesn't produce nearly enough copper to meet its own demand. Domestic mines and refineries can't fill the gap no matter how much policy tries to push them. For many businesses, there's no local supplier, just a painful choice between paying a 50% premium or halting production altogether. Small manufacturers in particular faced existential threats overnight. This wasn't just a policy change, it was a declaration that the cost of doing business in America was about to skyrocket. The ripple effects would be felt in every corner of the economy, from the price of new homes to the cost of keeping the lights on. Why all the fuss about copper? It's the lifeblood of the modern world. Copper powers everything: electric vehicles, wind turbines, solar panels, data centers, and the wiring in our homes. A typical EV uses over 180 pounds of copper, a wind turbine up to 30 tons. When you slap a massive tariff on copper, you're not just raising prices, you're slowing technological progress and clean energy. Copper is woven into our infrastructure wiring, plumbing, transformers. When copper prices spike, so does the cost of building hospitals, schools, and bridges. This tariff is like taxing oxygen, penalizing industries for using a material they can't do without. By making copper prohibitively expensive, the tariff sends shockwaves through the entire economy. It threatens the very foundations of America's economic and technological strength. Here's the problem with Buy American for Copper. The idea sounds patriotic, but the reality is much more complicated than a simple slogan. Copper is the backbone of modern technology, from electric vehicles to smartphones, and demand is only growing as we electrify more of our lives. America doesn't make enough. Our warehouses and factories are already feeling the pinch, with shelves running low and inventory shrinking. The US consumes huge amounts of copper but produces only about 5% of the global supply. That means for every ton of copper we use, 95% comes from somewhere else. Our factories and tech companies rely on imports for half their copper needs. Without these imports, production lines would grind to a halt and innovation would slow dramatically. This isn't a weakness, it's just geology and global trade. The richest copper deposits simply aren't found in the US, so we depend on a global network to keep our industries running. The tariff punishes American companies for a reality they can't control. Manufacturers are forced to pay more, not because of poor planning, but because of the Earth's natural distribution of resources. Most of our copper comes from Chile, Canada, Mexico, and Peru, key trading partners, not adversaries. These countries are essential to our supply chain, and tariffs risk straining those relationships. The tariff tells these countries we're willing to pay a 50% penalty for their copper, putting US businesses at a disadvantage and making American-made products more expensive for everyone. Why not mine more here? It's a fair question, but the answer isn't simple. Opening a new copper mine takes decades. Environmental reviews, permits, and community concerns can stall projects for years, if not longer. The Resolution copper mine in Arizona, for example, has been stuck in limbo for years. Despite its potential, it's a case study in how hard it is to boost domestic supply quickly. Building domestic capacity is a long-term fix. The tariff is a short-term crisis. The gap between what we need and what we can produce won't close overnight. It's like trying to build a fire station while your house is already burning. We need copper now, not decades from now. The result? American industry is left scrambling for solutions, facing higher costs, supply chain headaches, and an uncertain future as the world's demand for copper only continues to rise. Imagine telling your most important suppliers that you're suddenly going to charge them a 50% fee just to do business with you. It doesn't take long for them to start looking elsewhere. In today's global economy, loyalty only goes so far, especially when profits are on the line. Suppliers will always seek out the best deal, and if you make it too expensive or difficult for them, they'll quickly find new customers who are eager to buy. That's exactly what's happening right now. Major copper exporters like Chile, Mexico, and Peru are no longer prioritizing the US. Instead, they're redirecting massive copper shipments to countries like China, where demand is high and the business climate is more welcoming. China, already the world's largest consumer of copper, is seizing this opportunity to strengthen its grip on the market. Chinese factories and ports are working overtime to absorb the copper that once flowed to America. As US ports grow quieter and more hostile to foreign goods, Chinese ports are bustling, rolling out the red carpet for copper exporters eager to make new deals. The result? The US is becoming increasingly isolated from the global copper market, while China's supply chain grows stronger and more resilient with every new shipment. Shipping manifests are being updated in real time. Copper that was once destined for American factories is now rerouted to Asia, often before it even leaves port. For exporters, the choice is obvious. Selling to China means fewer barriers, more buyers, and better prices. It's a win-win for them. Ironically, the tariff that was supposed to punish foreign producers is actually rewarding them with new markets, while American businesses are left scrambling for supply and facing higher costs. As these new trade routes solidify, they'll be difficult, if not impossible, to reverse. The global copper landscape is shifting, and the US is being left behind. By building a tariff wall, the US isn't just blocking imports, it's designing itself out of the world's most important supply chains, risking long-term economic consequences. The world keeps moving forward, and with every deal, China tightens its control over essential materials, reshaping the future of global trade. The 50% copper tariff hits American factories first. Manufacturers face a brutal choice: absorb the cost and lose profits, or pass it on to customers. Guess what? Prices for everything from refrigerators to home wiring are going up. Even your electricity bill could rise as grid maintenance costs climb. This isn't just inflation, it's a direct policy-driven price hike on daily life. The uncertainty poisons the business climate. Companies hesitate to invest or hire. Consumer sentiment is falling and long-term inflation expectations are rising. Some businesses can't cope, corporate bankruptcies are up. Tapestry, parent of Coach, forecasts a $160 million hit. Applied Materials stock plummeted. While a few companies reshore production, the trend is clear economic distress, all from one policy. The pain is spreading from Wall Street to Main Street. If you think the copper tariff was bad, brace yourself. It's just the beginning. The White House is preparing even bigger tariffs, up to 300% on semiconductors, 250% on pharmaceuticals. This isn't protectionism, it's economic isolationism. The US relies on imports for both semiconductors and medicines. A 300% tariff would devastate tech companies, a 250% tariff would make medicines unaffordable. The administration is also targeting entire countries, Brazil, South Korea, and suspending the de minimis rule for small shipments. The result? Clogged ports, higher costs for small businesses and online shoppers. It's a full-spectrum assault on global trade, creating perpetual uncertainty. Businesses now operate in fear that a single announcement could upend their supply chains. This isn't a recipe for growth, it's a recipe for paralysis. The tariff dominoes are falling, threatening to topple the entire US economy. Now, a new conflict: the White House versus the Federal Reserve. The administration's tariffs are fueling inflation, while the Fed's job is to keep it in check. President Trump is pressuring Fed Chair Jerome Powell to slash interest rates to offset trade war damage, but cutting rates while inflation surges is economic madness. This pressure undermines the Fed's independence, a cornerstone of stable economic policy. If the Fed caves, we risk runaway inflation and a collapsing dollar. If it resists, it gets blamed for any slowdown. The result: massive uncertainty in bond markets and nervous international investors. This isn't just political drama. It's a direct threat to America's economic stability. America's tariff tantrum is shaking the world. Allies are scrambling to build new supply chains that bypass the US, a shift that's hard to undo. The F-35 fighter jet program faces billion-dollar cost hikes due to tariffs. South Korea was forced into costly deals to avoid even higher tariffs. Meanwhile, China is reaping the benefits, welcoming copper, boosting exports, and strengthening its supply chains. China is playing the long game, while America's unpredictability drives partners away. The message: America is no longer a reliable partner. The copper tariff is seen as a symptom of deeper instability. Panic, not prosperity, is driving record trade volumes at US ports. Add it all up: market chaos, rising costs, alienated allies, emboldened rivals, and the real casualty is America's credibility. For decades, the world trusted the US as the anchor of the global economy. That trust is eroding fast. The IMF reports a decline in the dollar's share of global reserves. Central banks are diversifying away from the dollar. Pressure on the Fed and erratic tariffs signal instability, making the dollar riskier than ever. A weaker dollar means higher prices, reduced savings, and diminished global influence. The copper tariff isn't a show of strength, it's a sign of insecurity. By building tariff walls, America is isolating itself and ceding leadership to competitors. With every new tariff, we're choosing a future that's poorer, more isolated, and less respected.